For the longest time in the attacker search, the two names we've heard of are Rasmus Hojlund and Dusan Vlahovic. But as it turns out, quietly, behind the scenes, Milan has been working on the signing of Victor Boniface. But the most surprising part probably about this entire storyline is that this might not even be the final striker signing for Milan. Which other profile are they going to be looking at? How does Boniface fit into Milan's system? That's what we're going to look at in today's video. Now, on August 13th, former Milan coach Arrigo Sacchi came out and showed his displeasure towards the latest comments that we had heard, or the reported hesitancy about Rasmus Hojlund wanting to join Milan. It was being reported that Hojlund is now warming up to the idea of joining Milan, and Arrigo Sacchi came out and said that, hey, Milan should not be going after any player who doesn't readily want to join them. You shouldn't have to convince somebody to join your club. Somebody should be ready to want to come here. And then the popular Manchester United content creator Mark Goldbridge came out and said that why would Hojlund leave a Michelin star restaurant in Manchester United and join a McDonald's in Milan? Now, I'm not going to dissect that asinine statement, but you guys let me know in the comment section what you really think about it. Then there was the concerns around Dusan Vlahovic, the one profile that I've talked about probably around 10 videos now. A player who played under Max Allegri, was, said to be the #1 profile that the club wanted to go after because of that past experience, because Allegri trusted that he could get him the goals that he wanted. But the player wasn't willing to reduce the salary that he needed to. Yesterday, we had Matteo Moretto come out and say that Iglitare had actually made contact with Juventus, or Vlahovic's entourage, to actually see what type of a salary reduction was even possible from his current 12 million a year pay. Milan's offer was reportedly somewhere around 6 million euros. They just needed to, at this point in time, figure out if this guy is even going to reduce it, or are they just wasting their time on this profile. Both of these contacts reportedly happened yesterday, for Hojlund with Manchester United and with Vlahovic's entourage with Juventus for the striker's signing. And it seems like once those two were exhausted and Iglitare did not receive a positive response from either side, that's when Milan decided that, you know what, we're going to go after another one of our options, and that is Victor Boniface. Pretty much from the moment that this morning kicked off, reports started to come out. Credit to Gianluca Di Marzio. He has faced his criticism for some news reports that don't really pan out, but he was one of the first ones to come out and say that Milan is actually in intense negotiation with Bayer Leverkusen for the transfer of Victor Boniface. Then Fabrizio Romano came out and said that once Milan was able to find some type of an agreement with Boniface himself, that's when they accelerated this negotiation with Bayer Leverkusen. Most reports up until now are suggesting that Milan is going to be going for a loan formula, where it's going to be a paid loan for this season and then a buy option set somewhere around 25 to 30 million euros. And Luca Cohen came out and said that this is pretty much a done deal. This is not really a negotiation anymore. Now it's a matter of formalities. So from the looks of it, this is going to be the next signing for Milan's very busy summer transfer window. Now, how do the fans actually feel about this signing? That's a whole other conversation. I think you could say that the response from the Milan fans has been a little bit polarized. Some people are fully on board with this, some people don't want this, but I think I'm noticing more of the population on the side that actually wants this deal to go through and for this player to actually join in. Now, Boniface is the player that Milan played last season when the Rossoneri played against Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League. During the league phase of the competition, I believe Leverkusen beat Milan 1-0, and that one goal that was scored by Leverkusen was actually scored by Boniface himself. But the problem that a large portion of fans on this side that don't want this deal to go through, a lot of them have an issue with the player's fitness at the end of the day. Last season, he played only 27 matches throughout the entirety of the season. He scored 11 goals, assisted a couple of times. As I mentioned in my previous video about Boniface, 27 games with 11 goals and assists, 11 goals and 2 assists, 13 goal contributions in 27 games when you're actually constantly in and out of the team because you're getting injury issues, it's actually not that bad. I think the stats that we might actually want to see is the one from the season before, where Leverkusen actually won the Bundesliga title undefeated, and he played a crucial role for the club. In 34 appearances, he scored 21 goals and assisted 10 times. That's 31 goal contributions in 34 matches in a undefeated title-winning season. I guess that essentially tells you the potential that the player has. And as I mentioned, this side talks about the injuries, but then this side talks about the fact that this guy can get you 31 goal contributions in 34 matches in a tough league as well. I think my concern with this player sort of maybe sits somewhere in the middle. I think there's a genuine concern of injury issues. Last season, he missed almost half the season through injuries throughout the entirety of the year. Even the year where Bayer Leverkusen won the Bundesliga title, he did miss games due to an injury for almost a 2-month period. He was in and out of the squad. The good thing is that when he was injured and he came back to the team, he once again started to hit the ground running. He started scoring goals right away, and that's kind of the profile you want. You don't want a player that gets injured and then has to take a long time to find their form again. It seems like he can get injured, he comes back, and he starts scoring. That's what happened in the title-winning season. And even last year, as I said, only 27 appearances, but still 13 goal contributions. I think the part that was sort of limiting the idea of Boniface making a move to Milan was the fact that Leverkusen has made so many changes this summer transfer window. They've basically become a new club. They've lost their coach. They've lost most of their top players in Weirts, in Boniface now, in, the list goes on and on. Xhaka, Frimpong, everybody's gone. And for that reason, there was some hesitation that a lot of people believed within Leverkusen to actually let this player go. But now journalists from Germany are actually confirming that Leverkusen does have some hesitation about letting this player go, but they're still willing to accept a paid loan formula with a potential option to buy. I think that is something that actually makes that fan base, the section of the fan base that isn't fully on board with this deal, that's what makes them question this entire situation, that when a club like Leverkusen loses this many pieces in one window, why would they then also be open to letting go of Boniface? At least hold on to one of your main players, one of your attackers. But the fact that they're letting him go could make it a little bit fishy for Milan, that why are they letting him go if he's a good player? And I think that's where the formula that the Rossoneri have come up with is actually not bad. A paid loan gives you an opportunity to sort of test drive the player for a year. If he performs, you then can get him for somewhere around 30 million euros. Keep in mind, I think this is the important part to keep in mind, that if this player is scoring outright the way that he was, 34 appearances, 31 goal contributions, and he continues to do that in the next season, then if you're going to go after this player, you're probably going to have to spend around 50 million euros plus for him. Right now, because of a potential injury risk, you can get this player at a bargain on a loan deal, and then you can pay outright after a year after you get a chance to actually test the player out. So if he performs, good. Now you might actually get a deal in the long run that is cheaper than what you would have gotten if he was actually fit for the last 2 seasons straight. And if he doesn't perform, you just say, that's it. The loan is all that we wanted. We don't want to buy the player. We're not going to exercise our option. So I think the risk for Milan in this situation is actually not that much, but the possible upside of the player actually performing and scoring goals would already jack up his evaluation anyways. And I think that's where reports that suggest that Iglitari is not just looking at Boniface as the only option. Milan might actually go for another attacker, said to be Conrad Harder of Sporting CP, as another potential option. And obviously, let's not forget, Milan already has Santiago Gimenez that they already spent 30 million euros plus on. So from the standpoint of the fans, I believe this is not the right deal because he has the injury risk. I think that is fair, but that is mitigated by the fact that this is not an outright purchase. Milan's not spending 45 million euros. They're going to get an opportunity to test a player out for a year and then make their call. Now, when it comes to the system that the coach actually implements, how does Boniface actually fit in those? Look, this is not going to be one of those tactical breakdown videos where I go into a lot of detail about how the player is going to move, etc., because this is a position up front. This is a center forward. His job is to kick the ball into the net. So it's not as much about the movements or how he's going to be drifting towards the wings or dropping into the midfield. It's about staying in between the sticks and finishing his chances. It's as simple as that. But we can still look at, how this player would potentially fit in some of the systems. If we look at the 3-5-2 that Allegri did implement against Bari, it does seem to be his favorite formation, one that Milan is likely to stick with for a chunk of the season at least. I think it is obvious he'll play up top as one of the strikers alongside his support striker in either Rafael or Christian Pulisic. He'll be acting as the focal point of Allegri's compact 3-5-2 system, which sort of morphs itself into a 3-5-2 during attack to overload some of those deep blocks that are created, at least the ones that were being created by Bari in the first game. He could potentially hold up part of the play, link up with midfielders like Modric, Fofana, Arden Yashari, and exploit those wingback crosses coming through from Estupinian, from Alexis Salamackers, actually probably from the one that we saw Fikayo Tomori deliver to Rafael Leao. You just have to change those faces. Instead of Leao, it would be Boniface, and it would be one of the wingers delivering a cross like that. Now, some of his strengths would be his physicality and his ability to finish. His aerial duel win rate is about 60%. This is a big guy, so he can use his strength to be able to win the ball up top. And he's a versatile finisher. There's no question about that. We saw the kind of goals that Rafael Leao and Christian Pulisic scored. That's exactly the kind of positions that Boniface would find himself. And having scored 21 goals in 34 games in the title-winning season, you know he can finish his chances. Another strength would be his fluidity. You know, the title-winning season, he had about 50 progressive carries. Last season, 25 plus. So that puts him in the 91st percentile for you know, carrying the ball forward, because that would force the defense to collapse on him when he's pushing the ball forward, and it would open up space for players like Leao or Christian Pulisic who are assisting him. Some of the challenges, I guess, from a defensive standpoint, there could be some, you know, issues for Milan, especially if they're going to be playing Rafael Leao and Boniface up top together. He's going to have to handle some of those defensive responsibilities, because if I really had to assume, I have some doubts that Milan would go through a system where Leao is the one who's actually helping out defensively and Boniface is sitting up top. I think it would probably be the other way around. And another odd challenge that I sort of, you know, found out about Boniface is the amount of times he drifts offside. 18 times in 2023-24. Compared to all the other top strikers in the game, he was probably... I think only Lautaro Martinez or somebody was ahead of him. Everybody else had less offside, you know, calls that are going against them. And the reason why I feel like that could be a bit of an issue is that if you're playing against a side where you have Allegri's counter-attacking system, you're not going to get as many opportunities to maybe score a goal. And in those moments, those fine margins matter. You cannot have an attacker who's constantly drifting offside when you don't even control that much position. You're playing a counter-attacking style where you actually need to take the chances that you get. Allegri teams in the past have scraped away with 1-0 wins on a regular basis. And those 1-0 score lines cannot be jeopardized because your attacker has the propensity to constantly drift offside. So I think that's something that he's definitely going to have to keep an eye on. He would have to help out the team defensively as well. And then there's a 4-3-3 system. There, obviously, he's going to be the lone striker up front. I think this signing almost certainly really jeopardizes the future of Santiago Jimenez, especially if Milan opts to play in a 4-3-3. Even if they play in a 3-5-2 at the end of the day, they can't play Boniface and Santiago Jimenez up top, because if Allegri's plan is to be believed, he wants to play Rafael Leao. He wants to build the team around Leao. So in a 3-5-2, you cannot play Leao as a left winger. You're going to have probably a Stupinian playing on the left. Then Leao is going to be the option that is going to be playing alongside Boniface. Where does that put Pulisic? Where does that put Santiago Jimenez? I think it is going to be interesting to see how he actually uses these players. I think players like Pulisic, who have such a high work rate, no matter what, should, you know, be on the starting lineup for Allegri's squad. But it is going to be interesting to see how he uses the front four of Leao, Pulisic, Boniface, and Santiago Jimenez in a 3-5-2 formation specifically. In a 4-3-3, not much confusion. He's the lone striker up top. His strengths would be his, the central threat. He's the only man up top, so he's going to have a lot of opportunities to finish his chances. He has the strength, as I mentioned. He has a habit of winning those duels. He's pretty strong in those. He'd also provide that pivot in the middle for players like Leao and Pulisic from the right and left to actually make their runs too. So it wouldn't just be him as a central threat in terms of finishing, but he could create opportunities for his teammates. And again, the progressive carries that we already talked about, 50 plus in the title-winning season. He can carry the ball forward. He can, by carrying the ball forward, he would attract defenders, open up spaces for the two wingers, so that still applies in the 4-3-3 system as well. And I think challenges in this system as well, one would be the defensive issues. What is going to happen in a 4-3-3? Who's going to be sitting up front and who's actually going to be dropping back to help out, in the defensive structure of the team? And he also risks getting a little bit isolated. Allegri's pragmatic style, it could isolate him if Milan sits deep, as we saw post halftime versus Bari. Once Milan took that 2-0 lead, they did sit back a lot more. They did try to maintain that balance, hold on to that scoreline, and that could risk a player like Boniface sort of just, getting isolated. I think the 2-0 scoreline would be a theme that we'll probably see a lot more from Milan this season. In the past, Chelsea with Jose Mourinho, they've talked about how once his team went up 2-0, he didn't want them to attack. He just wanted them to focus on defense. He didn't want that 3-0, risk taking that 3-0 or going for bigger scores. He just wanted to hold on to that 2-0. And you kind of get the sense that Allegri's also maybe a little bit similar ilk. He's happy with scraping away those 1-0 wins. As long as the result is a win, that's the focus for the coach. He doesn't necessarily need those extravagant and dramatic score lines that are showing your dominance on the game. It's more structured and more professional wins lens that a coach like Allegri focuses on. So with his ability to finish, that is exactly what the coach is focused on. Milan wants a player who can deliver you 20 goals plus in a season. And having gotten just about the right number in a title-winning season with 21 goals, Boniface does fit that role. He can finish his chances. Some of the other concerns that fans have is also the fact that he's going to be playing in the AFCON, so he's going to be unavailable to the team, sometime in December and January. So I think those are reasonable concerns around injury issues around the AFCON, but I also think that the numbers and the ability of this player to finish and his age, he's still a very young player, and the low risk proposition of bringing him on loan first and then signing him next year, I think this is a fairly good deal for Milan. And then there's a potential transfer of Conrad Harder from Sporting CP to Milan. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know this player or know how much I've watched this player play. The only thing that I've heard about him is that he had an 80 million release clause when he was signed to Sporting CP. So I find it very odd that a year later he's available for sale for just 25 million euros. He's 20 years old. Last season scored about 11 goals. And I think this just feels like one of those products of your scouting system. Clearly the guy hasn't hit numbers that would make you say, you know what, let's bring him on board. There's something that Milan's scouting department has seen. Maybe they have, realized that this player is a player whose evaluation will keep going up, especially if he has a solid second season where he scores a bunch of goals. And before that actually happens, you might as well snap him up, pick him up for about 20-25 million euros and bring him to Milan and give that depth to the strikers up front. Does this deal actually happen? We're going to have to wait to see, but all reports suggest that Iglitare does want to sign a second striker, a second attacker, and also potentially another center back. You guys let me know in the comment section how you feel about the Victor Boniface move to Milan. Do you think the signing of this striker with the names that were being linked to Milan, Nicholas Jackson, Rasmus Hojlund, Dusan Vlahovic, Artem Dovbyk, is this the one that you're actually happy with? Or is there another profile amongst these names that you would have preferred? Make sure to let me know in the comment section. One important announcement for you guys, there's not going to be a 4 takeaways video for the opening match against Cremonese. I will be going live for that game, so make sure you guys join in. The season opener for Milan, there's not going to be 4 takeaways, but a live stream instead to actually say hi to you guys and actually chat for 2.5 hours about the game and how Milan's transfer window has actually worked out. So make sure you guys join in. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter at FootballKush. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button, and as always from my side, Forza Milan. Grazie mille. Ciao. This is style of play and the scandals. Oh, the scandals, including a bizarre locker room incident where a player essentially drugged his own teammates. And we'll look at how lowering Serie A from 20 teams to 18 teams might be the